Okay, Zach. I've restarted the recording. It's take a lot.
It's take a lot. We've been going through all the opening bits that are not good for YouTube, but they will be on Patreon.
Which you can access if you want to hop over to the Patreon. There's a link in the description. You can join these fine people on the screen. And also hear all of the very not good jokes we just told.
Oh, they're so not good.
But I have a Zach. Have you ever it's for you'd someone?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Tell the folks at home what it's for youing is.
It's when you get a call or a knock at the door and you tell somebody, "Hey, it's for you."
Yeah,
Uh, and
yeah, but that's not it's for youing someone, right?
oh, then I don't know what it is.
Okay, you ready? You
Go for
you
it.
do that, except you instruct the next person to do the same thing. So
So you, so you cause like a unending loop, basically.
exactly. And we did this in my office recently.
Oh no.
Someone got a call from a telemarketer.
Yep.
I don't actually think it was a telemarketer. I think it was a debt collector. Gets a call from a debt collector. Says hello. Hello. I'm looking for Thomas. Right.
Yeah.
Say okay. Hold on. Passes to another person. Hello. Hello. I'm looking for Thomas. Okay. Hold on. Hello. Hello. I'm looking for Thomas. Oh. Okay. Hang on. And the phone just gets passed all around the office
Oh, that's so
for,
good.
for very long periods of time.
I I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah,
That's a really effective way to like waste that person's time.
yeah. What's the nature of the call? Oh, okay, hang on. I'll check to see if they're available. And you lean over and you're like, John, are you available? No, I don't know. Who is it? They didn't say. They said they got to talk to you. Okay, hang on. Hold on one second. Hello. Is John available? Oh, hang on. John.
Classic.
And
Absolute classic.
I think it was very fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I strongly recommend it. Uh, Zach, what are we doing right now?
What are we doing right now?
Oh yeah, I have a video. I have a
Okay.
theory. I completely forgot we were going off doing bits, and I have a theory. This theory comes from my brain.
This is the Tom theory,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah. I think you're gonna like it. I don't think it's super complicated. I don't think it's unreasonable. But I think you're gonna like it. Let's see. We are gonna start. What are we gonna start with here? Um. Yeah, we're gonna start with this. It's white, boop, white, boop, boop. At the beginning of the series, there is relative peace in the Seven Kingdoms. Boop.
That's true.
I don't think that this is an original theory. But I was unable to find anyone who had exactly this take on it. So I'm gonna say that it's mine.
Okay.
And if anyone fights me about it, I will pass the phone to the next person. So there you go. That
Um.
Zach, that's where we're starting.
So let's talk about the Seven Kingdoms at peace and war, because we've seen the aftermath of multiple wars through multiple different lenses. The Duncan Egg novellas show us the years in the past, but still like fresh in memory, consequences of the first Blackfire Rebellion. Uh, Fire and Blood shows us, at least from like a historian's perspective, and mostly focusing on the highborn sort of aspect of it,
Ding, by the way.
the consequences of the Targaryen civil war, the Dance of the Dragons, and we get a little bit of Ned and Robert uh, you know, talking about the consequences of Robert's rebellion and the effect that had on different places, uh, which was considerably less bloody than what we see in A Song of Ice and Fire main books, which gets particularly nasty. About as nasty as the Dance with Dragons, honestly,
For sure.
in terms of like how much damage it does. The
What?
War of the Five Kings is one of the worst that Westeros has ever seen.
Ding. Soon after the start of the series, the Seven Kingdoms erupt into the War of the Five Kings. And you also got the Seven Kingdoms have fractured in a civil war more than once.
For sure. And there's some familiarity to it. There's actually like what side you were in the dance was not like 100% predictable, but like somewhat lined up with some Blackfire support. A lot of the smaller houses who were like Blackfire supporters, I do believe were, I think Greens or Blacks, I can't remember, but there's a considerable amount of like houses that always get into squabbles and always end up on certain sides of conflicts with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of famous. There's the Brackens and the Blackwoods, where if one's on one side, the other's going to be on the other almost all the time. And there's various like upstart houses across the Seven Kingdoms. So yeah, that's all well and true. The Seven Kingdoms mostly quarrel among themselves. They have very few long protracted wars outside their borders. The most recent excursion outside their borders was still technically dealing with internal affairs because it was to prevent an invasion by another Blackfire. It was the Ninepenny Kings.
I don't have anything about the Ninepenny Kings here, although I certainly could.
So let's talk about the last conflict before the books begin,
Oh, you know
which
what?
is the
No,
Greyjoy Rebellion.
I'm putting that in. I'm putting that in. Quote, they called it that because because they say you could buy kings. Buy kings 9 a penny. I'm putting that in. That's a good one.
So let's talk about the Greyjoy Rebellion. It was the last instance of war uh, during Robert's reign, and it was very quick and very one-sided. The Greyjoys never got anywhere close to winning. Their fleet was knocked out by Stannis pretty much in the beginning of the war, and that was their entire strength. After that, it was merely occupying the islands and taking hostages. Like, if that's the worst conflict you get, that's pretty good.
Balon Greyjoy's actions before the start of the series are not relevant.
After, perhaps? So we should talk about what leads to afterwards, but perhaps?
Yeah, go ahead.
Balon Greyjoy basically attempts to declare some amount of independence again and also tries to carve out territory in the north. He's basically just looking to get the best that he can during the chaos, and he only does this when Theon is safely returned. Not that he wasn't planning to prior, but
Balon Greyjoy declares himself the new king of the Iron Islands and the North. Does that remind you of anybody?
well, there's the house, the people who had Harrenhal originally, Harren the Black, was the king of the islands of the rivers, and that was the old thing. It's kind of weird that he doesn't pick the islands of the rivers, but there's a lot of people fighting in the Riverlands and not a lot of people in the north. So from a like military standpoint, that's an easier victory for him.
Was the king of isles and rivers. Boop. Gonna put those two right next to each other. Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. Is this theory that the the Seven Kingdoms are reverting back to be more or less independent sort of ordeals? They're getting
Um,
regionalized.
you are so extremely close.
Interesting.
You use that, get more dings. Because we got to pad the runtime.
Is this uh is this another Aegon's Conquest sort of ordeal, right? Where the Aegon coming in, uh, the young Griff we have, is going to have to reconquer the Seven Kingdoms that have fallen into a period of civil war after like a succession crisis. Because Tommen and Myrcella have to die before Cersei does, which means there might be legitimately no heir to take over the Iron Throne. It'll be by all rights belong to Stannis, but Stannis is off doing some weird shenanigans with some ice people up at the wall or something like that.
Yes, okay, wait, hang on. Ding. Aegon the First fought to unite the Seven Kingdoms. Aegon the Sixth is on the way to Westeros. Is in
Oh,
Westeros.
his men, yeah, his men have landed. He's here.
Gonna put those two right next to each other. That's an interesting conclusion you drew. Set it aside. We'll talk about it at the end. That's not what I'm looking for. Aegon the Sixth will reforge the Seven Kingdoms. Is not what I'm looking for.
Interesting.
Though
So
you're barking up all the correct trees.
um, hmm. uh, so Balon is trying to make that Dorne and the Vale sat out the last war, and they've been highly independent. Uh, Dorne only really becomes relevant after Oberyn shows up to a wedding and gets his revenge on Mountain and possibly Tywin by poisoning him.
Oh, how am I?
The Vale basically functions as a kingdom within a kingdom. Like at this point, it's very disconnected from the rest of the world going on. That's why Littlefinger flees there.
The Vale does not take part in the War of the Five Kings. What am I putting here, Zach?
Dorne does not take part in the War of the Five Kings. Oh, originally the Vale didn't help its neighbors, right? Like they sent ravens, I think, trying to put a united front against Aegon. They just couldn't.
In fact, they pursued a position of neutrality.
Yep.
They tried to put their hands up and hide in their tower. In Aegon's conquest. And after Aegon's conquest took place, the Vale did not they did not take part. I'm going in some directions. Isn't this interesting?
It is very interesting.
Isn't this interesting? What else do you have? What else do we have? Here's Zach.
Oh, Dorne was the hardest to reconquer, right? They could never quite pin them down. And right now, Dorne is trying to they're either working with Aegon or they're trying to crown Myrcella, depending on who in Dorne you're talking about. Because it took a while for Dorne to come in, and Dorne came in through a marriage, and who is it's speculated Aegon will be betrothed to, but Arion Martell.
Dorne was the last kingdom to come under the influence of the Targaryens. And what is the counterpart to this?
Well, it's Arion Martell and marrying young Griff, right?
You ready for this? Dorne is the first kingdom to ally itself with Aegon
Oh,
the
oh, it's the reverse.
First.
They're doing
Yeah!
them in the reverse order.
Yeah!
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, Dorne is first. The problem is he's landing in the Stormlands now, and they were second. But Storm's End can hold out for a while, right?
Yes. Yep.
So he can take Griffin's Roost and all these other places, but he can't like take Storm's End until like they run out of food. Basically, we know that for a fact. Well, maybe Mace could have tried to take it, but he sure as hell was going to try.
Torrhen Stark. Torrhen Stark.
Torrhen Stark just said, "Okay, we're not going to put up a fight." Basically, that's what he did.
Because he had other stuff to do.
Well, he also realized they weren't going to win, or at the very least, winning would have been inconsistent with his other goals. Presumably, he knew some stuff about the others.
Yeah.
Is a good thought, especially because they have like a conversation that seems to change his mind about whether he should surrender or not.
Yeah, I imagine it's the ice zombies.
Yes.
So Torrhen Stark is called the King Who Knelt.
Yes.
Now, you are starting to see the interesting kind of bell curve that I'm building here.
There's a king who won't kneel up there right now. If it's Bruce Bolton, he's gonna say hell no.
Oh wait,
but if it's
the king who won't, the king who refuses to kneel is a wildling king.
Oh yeah, we do not kneel.
Ooh.
King Tormund.
The wildlings do not kneel. Jon could be considered a wildling king.
Yeah. Absolutely he could.
So, before we started recording, I was like, this is like a quarter baked.
Yeah.
But and like we've gotten a lot of it, and I think that you kind of like you're seeing what I'm doing here.
The main thrust. It's going to be a reunification that does not go quite the same way, but there's interesting parallels.
So let me make a timeline here of Aegon's conquest. Aegon's conquest went. Aegon lands. Everyone resists. Storms and Harrenhal fall. Then Reach and Westerlands fall.
Yes.
Then North falls. Then Vale falls. Then Dorne falls.
Then the Iron Islands.
The Iron Islands happened at the same time as Harrenhal.
Yes. Oh, well, sort of. I think they had, like, some trouble getting everybody. But yes, more or less.
The Vale falls. And then Dorne falls.
Much later.
What is the political climate before this?
It's the kingdoms don't especially get along. They war with each other a lot.
Yes. Control A, Control X. 14. Ding. Before Aegon's conquest, the Seven Kingdoms were in a period. We're gonna say Westeros was in a period known as the 100 Kingdoms.
I also heard them called the Bleeding Years.
That is
Unless I'm mistaking something.
that's Essos.
That's what?
That's Essos, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
The Age of 100 Kingdoms is a broad period of Westerosi history. The start and end have not been like like stated, but every family was a king. So Zach,
Yeah.
where am I going?
Is that Aegon conquering is going to basically cause anarchy in Westeros? Like
Absolutely.
it's going to cause a breakdown of social order on a scale that's never been seen before.
I do not think that Aegon the Sixth will unite the Seven Kingdoms. I think that Aegon the Sixth is going to shatter them.
That would make sense, right? Like a lot of people are going to have doubts about him. They're going to have doubts about Dany, who shows up at the same time, gets into presumably a conflict with him. By the time that they're done fighting, there might not be a Westeros left to rule.
Yep. So every family in Westeros is going to declare themselves the kings that they used to be.
Yeah,
There's
I
going to
mean,
be civil there's going to be civil war in every city.
it was the dragons we knelt to. Somebody says in when they're crowning Robb Stark.
There's the dragons we bowed to. I think that was John Umber.
Yeah, I like this a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And I have a little bit of like a little additional evidence. Um, there are factions growing within the North.
Yep.
The Bolton faction
A,
versus the Stark faction versus the Wildling Stark faction.
yep.
Not to mention the Karstarks. There are clear factions in Dorne between the Sand Snakes and Doran's camp.
And then several houses on either side of the dispute.
Right.
Yeah.
There is no clear heir to Storm's End.
Nope. But there's plenty of Bobby B bastards who could fight over it.
Absolutely.
And there are probably men who say by all rights it belongs to Stannis, even if he's not here. And
Yeah.
if there's no Cersei in the picture to do anything about it, some of those Stannis loyalists might stick up for him if there's any still left.
What happens when Stannis dies?
Even then there's nobody who's the rightful heir. If
Yeah.
Shireen's also dead.
Yeah, there's no one. If we take what happened in Game of Thrones to have some amount of truth to it, what do we do when Highgarden has no more Tyrells?
Yeah, they're all dead.
They're all dead, every one of them. There's not a lot left.
Then they're gonna fight for themselves basically.
Yeah.
Especially because like the Hightowers have a pretty compelling argument to take over the whole place.
And
They're honestly probably outside of the Tyrell riches, they're probably more powerful.
And you know who's going to be the king of the Isles and Rivers? I know.
Euron.
I know who's going to be king of the Isles and Rivers.
It's our boy, Euron
Oh
Greyjoy.
yeah. Oh my god, absolutely. It is everyone's favorite squid demon. And I hadn't actually considered that bit about about like Stark kneeling. That's a really cool take. Who else do we have? And the Vale. The Vale's an interesting one because the Vale kind of has always like been a powerhouse. It's very hard to assault them.
Yes.
So like you had I don't remember who it was. You had House Aaron who unseated the first men of the Vale.
Yes.
The Falcon King, I think it was.
I think their family. I think descendants of the Falcon are still alive. It's not like they all got wiped out.
Are those the Royces? Is that what
Royces, but perhaps, yeah.
And like Peter Baelish has caught, he's like manufactured a dispute in the Vale.
Yeah.
Who else? Who have I forgotten? We know that there is going to be, like, everyone supposes there's going to be a Frey civil war.
Yes.
Whole,
And that's on top of other factions who don't get along in the Riverlands.
yeah.
There's Brackens and Blackwoods who, like I said earlier in the video, just love killing each other. A lot of fans of murder in those households, specifically of each other.
I actually like, I liked it, but since we've been talking about it, I kind of love this theory.
Yeah, there's a quote unquote natural order of things that has existed since those early years where they were all fighting each other constantly. And absent a unifying force, things might revert to the mean a little bit. Some of it might have changed, but like this is a thing that happened in a lot of feudal countries back in the day. Was there would be no staying power once there wasn't a force to keep them there? They break off into smaller kingdoms until somebody else came to like unify, but that was usually few and far between. Uh, this makes a lot of sense from like a governmental standpoint too. If the power above you is constantly changing its head, changing its policies, and demanding things of you, and it can't really afford to go and deal with all the problems it's creating, you're just going to start ignoring them as a legitimate governing body. And how many kings will they have gone through before they get to Aegon? And then he's going to have pretenders actively fighting him the whole time. Like, Tommen and Marcella have probably been crowned and killed before Aemon's there. And there might even be some, like, Tristan Truefire situation, right?
Oh my
Like, that's entirely
god.
diffused. Like, somebody else just waltzes up and says, you know what? I'm the king. I'm one of Robert's kids. And there are plenty of Robert kids to do that.
Yeah, and that is extremely believable. There's a whole lot of Robert kids who look a lot like Robert Baratheon. And
Yeah.
isn't that the point of of Damon Blackfire's whole bit is he looked like a king.
Yeah. He had the look about him. And that's really all it took for some people was just, just a little bit of legitimacy and some convincing for them to take up arms. And it would also be funny if Cersei watched one of Robert's bastards, whom she tried to snuff out, take the throne, even if he wasn't there for a while, even if it was just as part of her like final humiliation.
So there it is.
Yeah,
There's the bit. I kind of love it, honestly.
yeah, it's a good theory.
Like, the more we've been talking about it, the more I'm like, this actually really tracks. What are we calling this?
I mean, this is the end of Westeros as a kingdom. It could just be the end of Westeros, but I mean that kind of implies the continent's going. Westeros is a continent, not a kingdom. I don't know.
Man, I kind of what I mean. It's kind of good.
Good. Got to admit, it's pretty good.
You buy kings 9 a penny. Man, like, will there be a period during uh uh uh, Dream of Spring when there are literally hundreds of kings? When there is a Bracken king and a Blackwood king.
Well, there's lots of periods. Like there's a period in UK history called the Anarchy where the leadership kept changing, and a lot of like lords were just completely disobedient during the time. Like they acknowledged very little of it. That's feasible. That's not an insane thing to have happen. There's historical precedent. In the history we know, George R. R. Martin has read a lot of and used it for inspiration.
We know he loves that kind of thing. Shit.
Now, of course, the Anarchy is almost a like there's a lot in common between the anarchy and the Dance of the Dragons, but like, there's nothing saying he can't do it more than once. Actually, his whole theory is kind of baked on something happening more than once.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing of the story. Yeah,
All right, I think that's the theory.
there
I
it
like it.
is. Zach, thank you for hanging out with me. I like it. I think it's pretty good.
Me too.
I might write this one up and expand on it a little bit more.
Yeah, go for it.
And if anyone, I would love to see more
Also,
parallels between the War of the Conquest and the like descent of the Seven Kingdoms, because I think that it's gonna shatter. I think that
also
the
this is
coming of another Aegon is gonna break it in 50.
uh also this is you watch a lot of speed runnings, right?
Yeah,
Speed runs, rather. Reverse boss order.
reverse boss order.
This is pretty much Aegon's Conquest reverse boss order.
And on that note, I hope everyone has a great day.
Bye, everybody.
All right, goodbye.